York's classic rock, Q1043.
Good morning. Happy Mother's Day. I want to reintroduce you to Nancy Carbone, who is a mom herself. Nancy founded the wonderful group Friends of Firefighters after September 11th, 20 years ago. She was basically trying to help the FDNY'ers who survived September 11th. We lost 343 that day. And she formed an organization that does this incredible good. They give free mental health therapy to FDNY'ers, both current and retired, and to their families. Nancy, in all transparency, called me last week and said, "We're in trouble. We have now a waiting list of FDNY'ers who need mental help, who need therapy right now." And this was right after the tragic death of FDNY'er Timothy Klein. So Nancy, I'll let you take the story from there, because what the public doesn't know was this was sort of like a dominoes effect for this particular firehouse and the FDNY as a whole. And of course, our hearts go out to Timothy's mom on this Mother's Day. I mean, we can't imagine. It is the worst loss, the loss of a child.
Yeah. It's yeah, you're absolutely right, Shelley. This is something that it's unimaginable, and it's every parent's greatest fear. Everybody can agree that Tim was beyond just a firefighter. He was a hero. He was a dear friend to so many, and his funeral was just one of the biggest I'd ever been to, which was a nod to the community for seeing just how valuable he was to everyone around him. Prior to, I think for a few weeks now, we've had a wait list, which is, to me, unacceptable, because when a first responder asks for help, it's already a Mayday. They don't generally ask for help. So it's difficult to pick up the phone and ask for counseling. And the last thing you want to do is say that I'm sorry, you have to wait. It's just not acceptable. So we have made some hires. We already have a bank of counselors, but they're all full. And now with your help, we're hoping to reach out and see if we can get some more counselors. I also want to add that while we lost 343 on that day, cancer continues to claim the lives of the firefighters who were there during the entire 9/11 period. And then we also have to address suicide. And this is my biggest fear. So we want to make sure that we have somebody there right away to answer them as they answer our calls when we call for help.
You had explained to me, though, this domino effect with Tim's death, because so explain to the listeners, because most people don't, they know we lost him. They didn't know his connection to others we lost.
Well, his firehouse lost Jesse Gerard in February of this year, and then also we lost Stephen Pollard in I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, and both of those deaths, all of the deaths, frankly, related to the firefighters, is they are tragic, and Tim was very close with the two of them. In fact, Tim gave the eulogy for Stephen, and I think one of the things that's hard to get your head around is when he is standing there and there's a video of him talking about, "This is our job. We are prepared to die." And when you hear his words, they're haunting now, knowing what happened to him. So I think there's a sense in the fire department, and I'm speaking from conversations I've had. I cannot speak first person, of course, but the conversations I've had, especially after his funeral on Friday, was that the reality of the dangers run deep, and it frightens the families when they see just how fragile life is. Life is quite fragile, but also that these are the people that go in to save us. And I don't know how much the public realizes how high the risk is. And maybe with Tim's death, that will bring it back to the fore. And unfortunately, I would love to say there will never be another fatality. But we live in the real world, and the real world is that this is an extremely dangerous job, and the families are aware that they may lose their loved one. So I think that has a lot of people finally saying, okay, I need help with this. It's a heavy lift. It's a heavy thing to think about. And I don't think it's a coincidence that it also comes right after, and it's not over yet, but it's coming through the COVID strains. Like the people have had such a hard time in the past couple of years. So I think that that is a domino effect. There's things that are piled on, and it becomes very difficult. Keeping in mind that there are people who lost their jobs due to COVID, whether it be because of the mandate, or that they couldn't work any longer from home, and that was their choice, or they were home with their children. They become teachers during that time, and it was a very hard time for all people.
So the reason I invited Nancy to come on today is that we are hoping that there are therapists in the audience listening to this who can help, or maybe a therapist who will be able to help Friends of Firefighters. Now, keep in mind, firefighters, police officers, EMSers are the very last people to ask for help.
Sure.
Because they are comfortable with their job is to help us. So if they are coming to Friends of Firefighters saying, I'm in need of counseling, it's serious. It's serious. So what are you looking for in terms of therapists in our audience who may be listening? First of all, how do they get in touch with you? Secondly, what requirements do they need to fill, and how much amount of time are they going to be asked to give?
Well, I'm going to start with your last question, because that really does depend on the person's schedule. We might have people call and say, look, I'm an LSW, and I can offer you 5 slots a week. And that's important to us, and we do run differently. We do not go through insurance. All of our services are free to the firefighter and their family. So we want to make sure that they're open to how we do things. It's a little bit different, and it's in deference to what the preferences are of the first responder community. So we are looking at LSWs. We're looking at obviously licensed clinicians with experience, but also it helps for them to have some knowledge of the FDNY, or some knowledge or willingness to learn about what the culture is, because it's tribal. And there are many things that, we don't ascribe to, as far as, you cannot have your judge, and good clinicians never do. But, they're a rough and tough group sometimes. And we really need to be on the side of understanding what it is they're going through, and helping them cope, and giving them tools to be able to cope going forward once they've completed therapy. So for us, we want someone who is going to be flexible, understanding, and kind. I mean, really, that's for me a really important traits. Of course, they have to be educated and experienced. They can reach us through our website, friendsoffirefighters.org, or they can call at 718-643-0980. And, I think
let's give out that number slower again, please.
The number is 718-643-0980. And, again, there's a process, of course, for hiring like anywhere else, and we have to be especially careful bringing people on. But we've been very successful with the therapists that we have, and we also have other services that augment. So we'll have acupuncture and financial guidance and such, and we have opportunities for education. But for us, there being a wait list, to me, is just not acceptable. You cannot tell a first responder, you finally made the call, but now you have to wait. And I'm sorry, I don't think civilians or anyone else should have to wait when they make a call and say, I can't handle this anymore. They shouldn't be told you have to wait a month or 6 weeks or worse. So for us, this is, to me, this is our urgency.
I'm speaking with Nancy Carbone. She is the founder of Friends of Firefighters, which provides free counseling for FDNY'ers, both those on the job, those who are retired, but also to their families. And we are talking about a crisis right now where Friends of Firefighters is in the position of having a waiting list to help treat firefighters who are in need right now. They may be suicidal right now, and there aren't enough therapists. Now, Nancy is not talking about a need for therapists who are volunteering their time, right? You're talking about being paid for the work you're going to do to help the FDNY'ers.
Yeah, but I do want to clarify something. Anyone that calls with the crisis of a potential suicide, we take immediately. That is not something you can wait list. And we do ask the person on the phone, is this something that can wait? And if it can, we'll check in on a daily basis or a weekly basis, whatever their preference is. But no, suicidal calls we take immediately and we act on immediately. We don't waste a minute. But yeah, we this is right now we're hiring fee for service. I think that's the best way to go into what we consider to be a crisis that may or may not be temporary. You know, there may just be a huge swell of need because of certainly Timmy's passing, but just again a cumulative effect of everything that's been going on in the past couple of years. And I think his death shook the entire city.
Do people who are going to contact you to offer their services, is it a necessity that they be familiar with treating PTSD?
I'd have to say yes to that because that's what's rampant right now, and has been actually for quite some time. And it's the kind of thing also that when I speak with firefighters and I no longer assume what their PTSD may have stemmed from, because I learned early on that there are firefighters that were very affected by earlier fires. So early as perhaps the Happy Land fire, which was in the 80s. I mean, so there's no time frame for grief or trauma. And we can't assume that when they come in a week after a fatal fire, that it is associated with that. But that might have been the trigger that said, okay, now I have to make a call.
You mentioned that if a firefighter is suicidal, of course, there's immediate help. Is someone always going to be honest when you ask that question if you're considering harm to yourself?
No, I'd have to say that people are not always honest, but you have to ask the question, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Are you thinking of killing yourself? Do you have a plan? And engage them in enough conversation where you can kind of, you know, thread through what it is that they're saying and maybe pull it out. No, there's no guarantee. There's never a guarantee. And that's my big fear, you know, that somebody will call. And then what is not uncommon with firefighters is they don't want to trouble anyone. I don't want to bother you. So that's very important that we do that intake very carefully and we do pull in, you know, whatever information we can that would direct us as to how we're going to treat that particular person.
Okay, so let's recap here. We are asking our listeners for help. If you are a therapist, we're not asking you to donate your time. We're asking you to contact Friends of Firefighters. If you can help, you will be paid for your services to help FDNY'ers who are in need of counseling right now. So again, Nancy, give out the contact information. And also, if you're not a therapist, but you know of a therapist who may be willing to help out, currently there's a wait list for this counseling. And if a firefighter is asking for help, this is not in their DNA to ask for help. It's serious. We are relying on our listeners to help out. And Nancy, let's give out the contact information.
The phone number is 718-643. Oh my goodness, I just froze. 0980 718-643-0980. I do want to add that we take this very seriously, and who we hire does have to have the qualifications and be interviewed and all of that. There is a process in place, and we really only hire the best. So we're
The
very
best, the
for
best
the
for the
best.
best. And that's exactly what they deserve. Thank you so much, Nancy Carbone, for everything you do. And we're going to switch gears when we come back. I'm going to tell you about a really unusual documentary about the group AHA, because they brought us so much joy, and you won't believe the amount of pain they endure amongst themselves. It's insane. That's coming up next. Q104.3.